February 22nd, 2019. Spanish police surround a North Korean embassy in Madrid. Inside, 8 diplomats kneel bound and gagged on the floor. But here's the twist. The intruders aren't soldiers, the CIA or Mossad. They're a handful of volunteers, teachers, students, one ex-Marine, armed with fake guns bought at a hobby shop for 833 euros. For 5 hours, they ransack every hard drive, every phone, and every classified document Kim Jong-un never wanted the world to see. When cops pound on the gate, a man in a suit walks out, flashes a diplomatic pin, and calmly sends them away. The police actually leave. By nightfall, the intruders vanish into the Madrid suburbs carrying terabytes of North Korea's secrets. It's the most audacious embassy raid in modern history, pulled off by amateurs with airsoft pistols. But the man who planned it all? He's about to discover that outsmarting a dictator was the easy part. Who was this Yale graduate turned guerrilla leader? And why did America betray him to Pyongyang? Adrian Hong stands at a White House podium, briefing a sitting U.S. president on humanitarian crises in East Asia. Trim, soft-spoken, dressed in a black turtleneck, he moves through policy circles like a rising star. Born to Korean parents, raised between Mexico City and California, Hong graduated from Yale and founded Liberty in North Korea by his early 20s, a non-profit smuggling defectors out of China. He advised world leaders. He spoke at TED. Princeton offered him a fellowship. Fortune 500 firms wanted him on their boards. Now, his face appears on Interpol alerts. North Korean assassins have reportedly been dispatched to kill him. The FBI considers him armed and dangerous. How did a humanitarian become one of the most hunted men on Earth? The answer begins in 2006, when Hong spent a week in a Beijing jail for helping North Korean refugees escape into Mongolia. He watched Chinese guards drag a pregnant defector back toward the border, knowing she faced execution or a labor camp. Reports and conferences were not going to collapse a police state built on terror. So, Hong stopped writing policy papers. He started building something else. In early 2017, a cryptic website appeared under the name Cheolima Civil Defense, named after a mythical winged horse in Korean legend. The site looked like an alternate reality game, all ominous declarations and proton mail contacts. In reality, it was an underground railroad. Adrian Hong had assembled a covert network of safe houses, operatives, and donors stretching from Seoul to San Francisco. His recruits ranged from Silicon Valley crypto millionaires to ex-Special Forces volunteers. Hong's network operated in the shadows, rescuing defectors one family at a time. But in 2017, the mission escalated into something far more dangerous. Kim Jong-un, the estranged half-brother of Kim Jong-un, was assassinated with VX nerve agent in a Malaysian airport on February 13, 2017. 2 women smeared the military-grade toxin on his face in the departure hall of Kuala Lumpur International, believing they were filming a prank show for Japanese television. Jong-nam was dead within 20 minutes. Pyongyang's next target was already identified. Jong-nam's 21-year-old son, Kim Han-sol, hiding in Macau under loose Chinese protection. Han-sol represented a potential rival claim to the North Korean throne, a bloodline threat Kim Jong-un could not tolerate. Within 8 days of the murder, Hong's network executed an extraction that intelligence professionals later called impossible. They spirited Han-sol, his mother, and his sister out of Macau, past Chinese surveillance teams and North Korean kill squads, to an undisclosed safe haven. Cheolima Civil Defense released a video of Han-sol looking into the camera, thanking his anonymous rescuers by name, holding his passport to prove his identity. A member of the Kim bloodline, publicly crediting a resistance group for saving his life. That single act painted a permanent target on Adrian Hong's back. He had humiliated a dictator who executes relatives for disloyalty. He had proven he could strike anywhere and extract anyone. By late 2018, Hong's group had rebranded as Free Joseon and declared itself a government-in-exile. In encrypted chats and clandestine meetings across 3 continents, Hong sketched his boldest operation yet, a direct strike on North Korean territory, executed on European soil, timed to the eve of a nuclear summit. He was not a soldier or a spy. He was a 35-year-old activist betting his life that ordinary people could outmaneuver a regime with nuclear weapons. But could a handful of volunteers really breach a dictator's fortress and escape alive? And if they succeeded, who would protect them from the consequences? Recruiting for the operation felt like casting a heist film, except the stakes were not fictional and the consequences were not negotiable. Hong's call went out to an unlikely roster. Christopher Ahn, 38, a square-jawed ex-Marine sergeant who had run intelligence units during the bloodiest days of Fallujah and still carried shrapnel in his shoulder. Sam Ryu, 28, an American college graduate who had spent months training in close-quarters movement and memorizing North Korean protocol. 2 South Korean-born students barely old enough to rent a car in the United States. A European cryptocurrency investor who had turned a modest inheritance into millions and now wanted to spend it on something that mattered. These were not Navy SEALs or CIA operatives. They were teachers, techies, and true believers who understood that capture meant interrogation in a Pyongyang basement, a televised confession, and a bullet or a labor camp. By late 2018, the crew gathered in Madrid under cover identities. They checked into separate hotels scattered across different neighborhoods, never meeting in the same location twice, communicating only through burner phones and encrypted messaging apps that deleted messages after 60 seconds. Each member wrote a goodbye letter to loved ones, sealed it in an envelope with instructions for delivery, and memorized the address of a safe house in Lisbon. Their target? The North Korea's embassy, a modest 2-story villa tucked into a quiet residential suburb called Aravaca, bordered by overgrown weeds and overlooked by few neighbors. Hong had intelligence that the ambassador, Kim Hyok-chol, had been recalled to Pyongyang, leaving only a skeleton crew behind. Satellite imagery showed outdated security cameras positioned at poor angles. A single low-ranking diplomat remained on site with a few family members and staff. The plan was part rescue mission, part smash and grab. If any North Korean official wanted to defect, Hong would offer a ticket out. If not, the team would loot every hard drive, phone, and document they could carry. 2 days before the operation, team members visited a Madrid hardware store and paid cash for 10 iron crowbars, bolt cutters, a 4-meter telescopic ladder, pliers, and 33 rolls of duct tape. Hong walked into Shoke, a police gear boutique popular with off-duty cops, and emerged with 4 combat knives, 5 pairs of metal handcuffs, black balaclavas, quick-draw holsters, and 6 realistic airsoft pistols. He added North Korean lapel pins and imitation official badges. The total cost for the entire arsenal was €833.15. The tools to invade a nuclear state's embassy were available at a Spanish shopping center for less than the price of a laptop. The timing could not have been more volatile. In 5 days, Kim Jong-un would meet Donald Trump in Hanoi for a high-stakes nuclear summit. Diplomats worldwide prayed for a breakthrough. Hong was about to light a match under the powder keg. On the eve of the operation, one team member whispered, "Are we really doing this?" There was no plan B. At dawn on February 22nd, Hong sent a one-word text, "Ready." The heist was on. But how long could amateurs with fake guns hold an embassy before the real world came crashing through the gates? And what would happen when the woman upstairs decided to jump? February 22nd, 2019, 4:32 p.m. A black sedan rolls to a stop at the embassy gate. Adrian Hong steps out in a tailored navy blazer and wire-rimmed glasses, carrying a gift bag containing €400 worth of Spanish jamon iberico, the kind of present a serious investor brings to a first meeting. He presses the intercom and introduces himself in polished Korean as Matthew Chow, a representative of Berenstain Capital, a fictional venture firm specializing in emerging market infrastructure. Weeks earlier, Hong had met one of the embassy officials at a Madrid restaurant under the same alias, discussing potential investment opportunities in North Korean development zones, planting the seed that made today's visit seem routine. The gate buzzes open and Hong walks through. He enters the foyer where a low-ranking officer greets him with a polite bow. The man's eyes drift to the gift bag. Hong smiles warmly. 3 seconds later, 6 masked figures rush through the gate. Hong left deliberately ajar. Replica pistols rise. Barked commands shatter the silence. The officer's face cycles through confusion, recognition, and terror in less than a second before he drops to his knees with hands raised. Chaos erupts across the compound. The intruders fan through hallways, rounding up staffers from offices and the kitchen, their tactical black clothing and balaclavas transforming the scene into something from a nightmare. 2 embassy employees resist and receive blows from iron crowbars that leave them bleeding on tile floors. Within 8 minutes, 8 people kneel in a row, wrists bound in duct tape, mouths gagged with strips torn from the same rolls. Christopher On barks commands in Korean like he is clearing a hostile building in Fallujah. One young activist's hands tremble so violently he can barely secure the restraints on a terrified secretary. Hong finds the charge d'affaires and drags him to the basement furnace room. Amid boiler pipes and dusty boxes, Hong rips off the man's gag. "We're here to help you defect. We can get you out of Spain tonight. You'll be safe." The official stares, incredulous. If he says yes, his family in Pyongyang faces execution. If he says no, the men with guns might kill him here. He refuses. Defiance flickers in his eyes. He is loyal to the supreme leader. The team pivots to extraction. Laptops, desktop PCs, cell phones, USB sticks, documents. One operative rips security camera hard drives from the walls. Another discovers a trove of encrypted phones, devices likely used by North Korean intelligence across Europe. Hong marches into the empty ambassador's office and snatches a framed portrait of Kim Jong-un as a trophy. Upstairs, the diplomat's wife hears shouting and footsteps climbing the stairs. She cracks open a window. The courtyard is 2 stories below. She hoists her 8-year-old son over the sill and drops him onto a garden plot, then jumps herself. Her ankle shatters on impact. Blood streams down her face. She drags herself toward the street, her son crying beside her, until a passing driver screeches to a halt and calls paramedics. Within minutes, police sirens converge on the embassy. An attack on foreign soil. The call no officer expects. Inside, Hong's team remains oblivious. They are cracking a small safe upstairs when someone yells that police have arrived. A crew member peers through the curtains. Squad cars line the street. Officers crouch behind open doors, weapons drawn. Blue lights reflect off the iron gate. For the first time, Hong feels panic rising. The mission is hanging by a thread. He grabs a spare blazer and a Kim Il-sung lapel pin. "Keep packing. Get ready to exit through the back." He slicks his hair, wipes blood and sweat from his face, and walks alone to the front door. A Spanish officer aims his pistol. "Stop. Identify yourself." Hong raises his hands. He is wearing a fake lapel pin and a stolen jacket. If his voice cracks, it's over. If he sweats, it's over. But he doesn't. With the heart rate of a dead man, he looks the officer in the eye and says, "A simple accident. Everything is under control. She is being tended to. Everything is under control." Behind him, 2 Free Joseon members stand in stolen suit jackets, playing the part of diplomats. The officer's instincts scream that something is wrong, but legally, he cannot storm an embassy without permission. Hong adds with a slight bow, "We deeply respect the work of the Madrid police. Thank you for your concern, but we require no assistance." He closes the gate in their faces. The patrol cars withdraw. Hong's team exhales. They have bought themselves minutes, not hours. The crew finishes loading their haul. Hard drives, USB sticks, SIM cards, and 2 desktop computers with cables still dangling. In the garage, they find a Mercedes and an Audi with diplomatic plates. The perfect getaway vehicles. At 9:40 p.m., after nearly 5 hours inside the embassy, they crack the gate remote and slip into the Madrid suburbs. Hong and 3 others exit through a side door, vanish down a back alley, and climb into a pre-booked Uber ordered under the alias Oswaldo Trump. As the car speeds away, the team allows themselves to breathe. They did it. They invaded North Korean territory and escaped alive. But will the country they just handed a treasure trove of intelligence reward them as heroes or destroy them as criminals? The morning after the raid, Adrian Hong boarded a TAP Air Portugal flight from Lisbon with terabytes of stolen data in his carry-on luggage. His destination is New York City, and his plan is deliver the intelligence to the FBI and forge a partnership against Kim Jong-un's regime. Hong believed he was carrying material that could expose North Korean operations across Europe, identify intelligence officers operating under diplomatic cover, and potentially provide leverage in the ongoing nuclear negotiations. Within 5 days of landing, Hong arranged a meeting with American intelligence contacts through intermediaries and handed over everything: hard drives, flash disks, encrypted smartphones, the entire haul from Madrid. He walked out of that meeting in Lower Manhattan believing he had accomplished something historic. Then silence. No acknowledgement from Washington. No follow-up calls. No debrief requests. Behind closed doors, the Trump administration was 5 days from a nuclear summit with Kim Jong-un in Hanoi, the highest-stakes diplomatic gamble of the presidency. The last thing Washington wanted was a diplomatic crisis over a rogue embassy attack that could derail negotiations. The Department of Justice made a calculation that would haunt Adrian Hong for the rest of his life. His crew were not allies to be protected. They were criminals to be sacrificed. The FBI transferred every stolen device to Spanish authorities without extracting the data. Spain, eager to repair relations with Pyongyang, promptly returned the computers, phones, and hard drives to North Korea's diplomatic representatives. It took Hong 10 years to build this network. It took the FBI 5 days to destroy it, to save a diplomatic summit that failed anyway. The US government took the evidence Hong risked his life to steal and gift-wrapped it for Kim Jong-un. If those devices contained lists of informants, identities of defectors, or covert communications, they were now in Kim Jong-un's hands. The people named in those files faced execution. On April 18, 2019, U.S. Marshals arrested Christopher Ahn in Los Angeles on a Spanish extradition warrant. The charges were violent trespass, kidnapping, and robbery. The next day, federal agents unsealed an arrest warrant for Adrian Hong, naming him the mastermind of a criminal gang. Lee Wolosky, the attorney representing Free Joseon, blasted the Justice Department for taking North Korean witness accounts at face value. His protests changed nothing. The United States government had effectively sided with Kim Jong-un over its own citizens. Marshals raided an apartment linked to Hong in California. He was already gone. The warrant described him as armed and dangerous, 6'1" and 220 pounds. A nationwide manhunt began. Spanish courts publicly named Hong, Ahn, and the others as perpetrators. North Korea called the raid a grave terrorist attack and demanded the terrorists face justice. An international wanted poster circulated with Hong's aliases, Matthew Chow and Oswaldo Trump. The FBI had not only failed to act on the intelligence, they returned it to the enemy and placed a target on Hong's back. In a final gut punch, the FBI handed over even the sensitive data on the devices, not just the hardware. Hong later told a confidant that when he learned of the handover, he felt physically ill, like I'd been stabbed in the back by someone I trusted. The embassy raid had succeeded. The aftermath erased every gain. Washington threw Hong to the wolves to salvage a summit that collapsed anyway 5 days later in Hanoi. Now hunted by 2 governments and possibly North Korean assassins, Hong faced a choice: surrender and spend decades in prison, or disappear. He chose the latter. But can a man truly vanish when both the FBI and Pyongyang want him found? And what happens to those left behind to face the consequences? Spring 2019, Los Angeles. Federal agents stake out a white Kia Soul in a strip mall parking lot, the car with vanity plate ardent that Hong was rumored to drive. They photograph everyone who approaches. They run plates on every vehicle in the lot. The man himself is nowhere. By the time U.S. Marshals knocked on his apartment door in the pre-dawn hours, Adrian Hong had already become a phantom. No credit card transactions, no cell phone pings, no digital footprint of any kind. Friends and family received no calls, no messages, no indication of where he had gone or whether he was even alive. Some intelligence analysts believed he fled to South Korea or Taiwan. Others suspected he was hiding in plain sight somewhere in California, protected by a network of sympathizers who had helped him build Free Joseon. The FBI's Los Angeles field office, accustomed to tracking cartel leaders and organized crime figures, admitted in internal memos that they had lost their target completely. The leader of the only group ever to successfully raid North Korean sovereign territory had dissolved into the same shadow world he had operated in for years. His comrades did not share his talent for disappearing. Christopher Ahn spent 4 months in a federal detention center fighting extradition to Spain, his military service records and combat decorations meaningless against an international arrest warrant. He faced the prospect of transfer to Madrid, and from there, the nightmare possibility that Spain might hand him to North Korean authorities. His lawyer argued the obvious during one hearing. If Spain extradited Ahn to Pyongyang, he would be tortured, forced into a televised confession, and executed. American diplomatic officials had to formally guarantee that extradited suspects would not be transferred to a third country without U.S. permission. It was cold comfort. Ahn was eventually released on bail, but the ordeal left him with panic attacks, insomnia, and a legal limbo that persists to this day. Other Free Joseon members scattered across the United States had FBI agents appear at their homes, subpoenas served at their workplaces, and careers derailed overnight. One young activist who had joined believing he was part of a heroic resistance movement sat in his dormitory room, expelled from his university, wondering if he would spend his 20s in a federal prison for daring to challenge a dictator. Across the Pacific, the regime seethed. North Korean state media accused the CIA of orchestrating the Madrid attack, though Langley flatly denied involvement. According to Hong's attorney, Pyongyang dispatched hit squads to find and kill him. This is not speculation. The same regime murdered Kim Jong-un with nerve agent in broad daylight. Defectors have been abducted from foreign countries and dragged back to face execution. If you were Adrian Hong, you would spend every day wondering whether the stranger at the cafe or the sedan trailing your car carried orders to end your life. Yet in exile, Hong's legend grew. To North Korean defectors and dissidents worldwide, he became a folk hero, the man who struck Kim Jong-un and escaped. Online, sympathizers whisper that Hong is sheltered by allies who cannot publicly approve of his actions but privately fund his protection. Free Joseon kept fighting. On the 100th anniversary of Korea's 1919 independence movement, the group declared itself a provisional government, complete with a constitution and crypto freedom bonds to raise funds. In 2020, activists allegedly vandalized the North Korean embassy in Berlin, splashing paint and leaving graffiti denouncing Kim. Hong's disappearance transformed him into an avatar for resistance. Nowhere and everywhere, a ghost fueling a movement from the shadows. To this day, Adrian Hong remains at large. U.S. authorities still consider him a wanted fugitive, but no public update on his case has emerged in years. Spanish prosecutors proceeded with charges in absentia, a trial missing its protagonist. North Korea tightened embassy security and likely purged any official deemed compromised by the Madrid breach. Someone in Pyongyang paid dearly for that failure. Kim Jong-un cannot afford to look weak. So what did Adrian Hong accomplish? He and a handful of ordinary citizens invaded North Korean sovereign territory and lived to tell the story, a feat no intelligence agency has matched in modern times. He exposed cracks in the regime's armor, proving that even an embassy could be breached and secrets spirited away. He demonstrated that Kim's fear tactics could be reversed. For once, the dictatorship felt vulnerable. Some call Hong a criminal, others call him an extremist. But to those who have escaped North Korea's prison camps, who have watched family members executed for owning a foreign DVD, who have risked death crossing the Yalu River, Adrian Hong is something else entirely. He is proof that a few fearless people with fake guns and a righteous cause can rattle the foundations of tyranny. Will he resurface? Perhaps when regimes fall and archives open, the full story will emerge. Maybe he will appear under a new name, continuing the fight. For now, he remains a phantom. The man who outsmarted North Korea has become as elusive as the secrets he stole. His story raises a question none of us can ignore. What is the price of challenging evil, and who will stand beside you when you do? Hong proved that a few amateurs could humiliate a nuclear superpower, but he wasn't the first. There is another guy who hacked North Korea and took on an entire government from his bedroom. Click here to see how they did it.